Hello everyone, I'm Wheelman, and welcome back to Week 4 of the Season 10 challenges in Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, before I even begin this week, I feel like I owe everyone who watched last week's video an apology. The first thing that I need to apologize for is the video being late. I was being lazy, and I had no excuse not to get it out on time. So, for anyone who may have been inconvenienced by last week's video, I'm sorry. The next thing that I need to apologize for is for using loot box vehicles in the video. At best, that was me rubbing your noses in the vehicles that I have earned from the loot boxes. And at worst, that was me giving the appearance that these would somehow help you in the challenges. When I first set out to make this series, it was with the intention to show that you didn't need anything other than the base game to finish these challenges. So to anyone who may have been misled by my use of non-default vehicles, I apologize. I'm sorry. So with that out of the way, let's jump into this week's challenges. First up this week is, in Libertad, use CQC to kill 5 Santa Blanca soldiers in a row without being visually detected and without collateral damage. The collateral damage thing just means that you can't kill anybody else between these melee kills. But if you fast travel down to Libertad Bravo, there is this little guard post that's nearby. You can spawn a helicopter and it'll appear right behind you, and then you can just fly over there. Now, you may have noticed I already have 4 out of 5 kills completed. Every time you do this, you can just save and quit. You will always spawn at that rally point, and you can take the same path over each time, and you will never be spotted. As soon as you get here, your squad mates will usually spot out the guy who's inside. If you equip a flashbang, you can then throw it in through the door to stun him. You could also wait around a little bit for him to walk outside, but I'm impatient. Once he's stunned, you can just run up and melee him. After that, just do it 4 more times to finish the challenge. Challenge 2 is, in extreme difficulty and without firing a single shot, deploy to Malika Bravo, then complete the mission El Cardinal. Obviously, first up, you need to set yourself to extreme difficulty. Then just fast travel. And once you're on the ground, you can go back into the map and zoom all the way out until you reach the web. From there, you can pick the El Cardinal mission. Just a fun little personal side here, but El Cardinal is one of the last missions that I had to do for this character. I started playing the mission with Ghost a little while back, and I had to stop in order to film a new challenge. Since then, for about a month and a half now, every time that I fast traveled, Nomad and friends would have the same conversation that they do at the start of this mission. I kept meaning to go back and finish this mission in hopes that it would fix the bug, but I just never got around to it. Anyway, if you go near where I marked, you'll have good visibility with your drone. And there's an easy way over the wall when the time comes. Just use Rebel Spotting and Sync Shot to kind of clear out the base. It's kind of hard to explain where everybody is, because despite the size of this base, they are scattered around pretty much everywhere. I used the Sync Shot ability to clear out pretty much everybody near the entrance to the camp. The only ones who were really left were the ones near the church, because it's a lot harder to kill them without the people around them noticing. I ended up having to come inside before I could kill this guy. I don't know why, the AI just doesn't like to shoot him when he's under there. From here, you can disable the generator, and that will turn off the alarm that's on the other side of the base. From there, just work your way towards the church, and once you're there, you can climb the scaffolding that's just inside. Normally I would just shoot this guy from the outside, but because you can't fire a shot, you can sneak around behind him. If you go behind the equipment, he has almost no chance of spotting you as you sneak up on him. As soon as you use the computer, everything kicks off. Two guys will spawn on the route that you came in, and you'll almost immediately get shot. If you give your squad the order to open fire, they should pretty much immediately kill the guys who are outside. I decided I wanted to try and be cool and drop on this guy like I was Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the game just wasn't having it. So instead, I took the scaffolding that was on the left and ended up chasing him down on foot. I caught him just before he reached his car, so I decided to stuff him in the trunk and move on. Now, from this point on, you shouldn't be an idiot like I was. I decided to rush and cut some corners, and I paid for it.
I brought the congregation to Sueño because he's a true believer. He knows.
I then had no choice but to stuff him in the nearest vehicle that was available. I then had to drive him back in this slow truck. Turns out they had also set up some roadblocks along the way, so that almost got me killed. So just try not to take any shortcuts on the way back. There's nothing overly difficult about the drive back, just the one or two roadblocks along the way. But that's challenge 2 down, so on to challenge 3. This week's final challenge. The final challenge for the season, and the only thing standing between you and that honey badger is, in extreme difficulty and without dying, deploy to San Mateo Alpha, then complete the missions Operation Silent Spade and Operation Silent Spade Snafu. I know that sounds almost impossible, but I assure you that it is not. The challenge says that you have to do both missions, but it doesn't say which order you have to do them in. So after you go to San Mateo Alpha, immediately turn around and go to Inca Camina Bravo. Snafu is far and away harder than the first one, so we're going to do part 2 first. Also at this point I should mention that if you are in tier mode, you should disable it to make your life easier. When you're ready to head out, grab a helicopter and fly over to the train yard. Now, last week when I went through this area, I talked about some tricks that you can use, but I wasn't very eloquent about it. First up is a trick that you can use to force bodies to despawn. The first step is to look away from the people that you're going to be killing. Next is you mark the guys that you want dead with a sync shot. I ended up picking the heavy that was closest to me, but this will work on every single guy in this area. Now, this guy is kind of out in the open. There's a lot of patrols in the area, and if I just leave his body there, there's a pretty good chance that the enemies are going to find him. When the shot is ready, hold A to execute, and immediately leave your drone view. Because you're now looking in a different direction, everything that was behind you is now no longer important to the game, and his body will disappear. You can use this technique to just slowly clear out this entire area.
Roger, target acquired. Ready, call the shot. Target down. Okay, we're still good.
something else I wanted to note was that as you clear this area of guys, people that were stationary before will start to move. This is all one attempt, and you'll notice that the heavy dude that I shot earlier has already been replaced by somebody else that was in the formation. Right now, he's wandering off again, because I've killed even more enemies off to the right. This happens almost every time you get an area like this that's very small, but has a very large number of enemies in it. You can use this to slowly whittle away enemies in the area on your way to killing everyone. When everybody is finally dead, you can run in and interrogate this guy. Once you're done, and before you even get in the helicopter, take a minute and switch to proximity mines. You're going to want easy access to them when you get into the next area and onto the roof. I feel like it's also important to point out that you can fail the mission. The truck can blow up, or you can be detected, or whatever. You just can't die. If the truck blows up and you fail this next section, you'll be put on the outskirts of the city. From there, if you run towards the city and onto the train tracks, you can spawn a helicopter directly in front of you. Now, if you stay low and come in from the west, you can get on this rooftop without being detected. When you go into land, it might say suspected, but they won't know that you're up there for sure. Once you land, run over to the stairs and toss a proximity mine down them. This likely won't kill anybody coming up to attack you, but it is your early warning system to wake up and look around. From here, call for Rebel guns for hire and Rebel diversion out on the street, and just wait for them to do the heavy lifting. As I was doing this, a guy found his way onto the roof, and that proximity mine saved my bacon.
Ready? Fire, fire, fire.
Copy.
After guys running up to you while you're in your drone, the two biggest threats up here are the helicopter that comes shortly afterwards, and snipers a little bit later on. The HTI will make short work of a helicopter, and you can just use sync shot to take care of a sniper. At about 1 minute 40 on the clock, Kozak will start complaining about how hard it is, and you can start heading down. As soon as I round this corner, I almost die. I panic melee the guy, and I was able to save it, but you should call in a rebel spotting before you go downstairs. If I was in tier mode, I would have died immediately, but because it was only extreme mode, it was survivable. I like to hang out on the second floor as the rebels and your squad are kind of finishing off the last of the enemies. It's doubly important now because I'm terrified of dying. At 20 seconds on the clock is when Kozak gives up on defusing the bomb. If you're at the door when that conversation starts, you will be able to get in immediately when Nomad calls Bowman and drive off.
Fuck. This wiring is too complicated. There's not enough time to get through it all. So we're all dead. I can delay it, but that's it. Gotta get
Keep an eye on your minimap. I got a little nervous here when I saw the enemies spawn in. Just take cover and let the rebels in your squad deal with them.
Where's the closest place to get rid of it?
Once you're inside, you're basically home free. Drive it down the road and into the quarry, and you are done with this part of the challenge.
Haul ass. That was too damn close.
Once your heart rate is back to normal, fast travel to San Mateo Alpha. From there, you can go back into the map, zoom out to the web, and start Operation Silence Fade. What you should absolutely not do after this is get on a motorcycle, because that's just going to increase your risk of death. Just for the first third of this mission, when you're driving around and talking to people, just use a car.
Buckle up, people.
When you parachute in, it doesn't really matter where you land in the base, as long as you make it over the wall, but the closer you get to this warehouse, the better. After some plot happens, just go back out the way you came and hug the left wall until you get to the road. The biggest threat in the base is this patrol of 4 guys here. Now, this week, since you can use weapons, I suppose you could kill them all, but I'm just so used to leaving them alone that I didn't bother. Unfortunately, I have to talk about this because every single time that I have played this mission, this has happened to me. If you get to the generator and you can't disable it, the only way to fix it is to fail the mission. Firing an unsuppressed weapon wasn't quite enough. I ended up having to blow up this gas station here. This is all very dangerous when you can't die, so maybe stick a C4 down somewhere and go and hide if this happens to you. It always works the second time, so just follow the same path and get back at it. I chose to kill this heavy and the sniper over here. You don't have to. It's actually probably better if you don't, because killing the heavy spooked the pilot. I'm pretty much just running through the base at this point, and I don't suggest this level of recklessness. Once I got over to this side of the base, something kind of weird happened to me. When I went to kill these guys, my teammates actually ended up shooting through the generator that I had disabled, and it blew it up. A couple people got suspicious, but I somehow managed to get away with it. Just take your time and sink shot everybody in this area until it's clear. Once everything's clear, just make a dash for the helicopter. Don't forget to let Kozak in before you take off. My advice when leaving the base is, as you take off, if you're not at least a little bit concerned that your rotors are going to hit the trees, then you're too high. When you get ambushed as you're coming out of the canyon, the big helicopter that's in front of you is the biggest threat because its rockets will kill you instantly. The rockets in your helicopter will lock on, but in this video it was at about that point that I realized I had forgotten how to fire them. So rather than stick around and fight, I decided to just gun it, and I managed to get out of there, out of the range of the enemy helicopters pretty quickly. problem was, I knew if I turned around and tried to land, those helicopters would be on me again in an instant. So instead, I decided to fly around this mountain in the hopes that they would despawn. There is still some anti-aircraft in the area, but as long as you stay low, you should probably be fine. When I finally landed, I took a quick look around just to make sure that there were no other helicopters in the area. I had succeeded in losing them on my way there.
Dad bird approaching. Stay down.
So if you've made it this far and still haven't died, you should really be using the stairs on your way to the rally point. I'm sure you would feel incredibly foolish if you just ran off a cliff and died when you were this close to finishing the challenge. But that is it. If you finished all of the challenges this month, you are now the proud owner of the Honey Badger. If not, I'm gonna be honest with you, you're really not missing out on much. It's really pretty mediocre as a PDW. It's really more or less an SR-635, but with a better fire rate. The SR-635 is actually better in terms of damage and penetration. Really, the only difference is the Honey Badger has a custom reload animation. So if you didn't manage to get the Honey Badger, don't really worry about it. Just slap a suppressor on the SR-635 and play pretend. But this is not a gun review, it's a challenge video, and we still have the Task Force challenge left to do. So, for this week's Task Force challenge, we have simultaneously destroy the convoy from the Koani mission, the Convoy, and the convoy from the Libertad mission, Toxic Convoy. So when it comes to this challenge, I have some bad news, some good news, and some more bad news. The bad news is, as of this commentary, I still haven't actually finished this challenge. The good news is, this challenge is identical to one a few weeks ago, and I still have the raw footage for it, so I can do all my fancy editing all over again. The other bad news is you can't do this challenge alone. You need to have at least one other person in your task force. So I roped Ghost in on this challenge, and he and I had two very different ways of going about completing it. His plan was to chase down the convoy and force it to stop by shooting the driver. Mine was to grab as many cars as I could and set up a roadblock some distance in front of it. Now, I'm not saying that there is a right way and a wrong way to do this challenge, but we recorded for about 20 minutes, and within 6, I had my convoy stopped and waiting. Meanwhile, he was chasing his one around and dying. So I'm not saying that there is a right way and a wrong way to do the challenge. But I am certainly thinking it loudly. When you finally have both convoys stopped, it's just a matter of coordinating your shots. Use the Xbox Party system, use Skype, use whatever the PS4 equivalent of the Xbox Live Party system is, and count it down.
Convoy's destroyed. The cartel just took a big fucking hit to their bottom line. Convoy's destroyed. The cartel just took a big fucking hit to their bottom line.
So that is it for this week's video. If you liked the video, please leave a like on it. These take a while to make, this one especially with the fancy dual camera. For this week's outro, enjoy this Bolivian farmer's one weird trick for doubling the horsepower in his tractor.